Hello guys, this is Biyas and I'm finally here with a series where I'm going to tell you how to create the realistic scene that I've just shown to you. So today in part 1 we will go ahead with creating a realistic sofa for our scene. So this is the default blender scene. What we will do first is we will go ahead and select the camera and the default light that we have been given, and we will delete this by pressing the delete key. Now we will scale this cube appropriately. First we will do G and Z and bring this up. Then we will scale it on the Z axis and make it really thin. I'm sorry, S and Z to scale it on the Z axis, and we will make it very thin. Now we can zoom in and we will go to S. We will scale it along the X axis somewhat like this, and we will scale it along the Y axis as well. So this will be the base of our sofa. So now what we will do is we will select this sofa, the sofa base, and we will go to physics materials. Let's first go to the modifiers tab. So we are here in the modifiers tab. First we select this and press tab to go to the edit mode. Then we press Ctrl and R to create a loop cut here, and we double click, and then we go in here to the drop down and we increase the number of cuts to say 20, or let's keep it 10 here. Then we will press Ctrl R again and we will place a loop cut perpendicular to the previous one, and again double click and go in here and create 10 loop cuts here. So that will give us a lot of geometry. So now what we will do is we will go back to the object mode, or by pressing tab we will go back to the object mode and selecting our mesh. What we'll do is we'll go to modifiers and add in a bevel modifier. We will reduce the amount of this modifier to, let's say, 0.01, and increase the segments to around 3 or 2, or increase this to 0.02 as well and increase the segments to 3. So this looks perfect now. So now we will add a subdivision surface modifier. Yeah, so and we will put this to 2. So we are almost done. So now what we will do to make the base a little bit fluffy is we will go to physics tab and we will go to the cloth modifier, and then we need to check the pressure here and put it to somewhat like 5, and then we go to field weights here, the drop down, and then we decrease the gravity to 0. Finally we put the timeline up and we hit play here. So we will simulate cloth here, and then we pause this and we select our ideal frame for the base of our sofa. So 2 is looking pretty good to me here. It is little bit fluffy. 3 is looking a bit too much to me, so I will go with 2 here. So what we have to do here now is do here next is right click here and shade smooth, and next what we do is we go to modifiers and we apply the bevel modifier, then we apply the subdivision surface modifier, and then we apply the cloth modifier. If we apply the cloth modifier earlier, then there might be some problem, so we apply it in this sequence. And then what we do is we will be modeling the sofa today, so we select this mesh and we hit shift D to duplicate it and press R to rotate it along the x-axis by 90 degrees, and then click, and then press G and Y to move it on the y-axis, move it back on the y-axis. Let's see it from the side view. Let's move it a little bit front on the y-axis, and then G and Z to move it up. Then we scale it down along the Z axis according to the back of the sofa, and then again G and Z to put it down on the Z axis. Now it should look pretty good. Now what we will do is I will scale this base along the Y axis a little bit more and bring it forward. G and Y, and I'll bring it forward a little bit. So now this is looking pretty good. Next, what I'll do is press Ctrl S to save, and I'll go in here and press Shift D again to create the arms of the sofa, and I'll press R in this situation without clicking anywhere. I'll press R, and then I'll rotate along the Y axis and then 90 degrees and then click. And then what I'll do is I'll reduce the scale only along the Z axis by pressing S and Z like this, and I'll bring it up. I'll go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, of whatever PC or laptop you're using, and then G and Z to move this up according to the base of the sofa, and then G and X to put it on the side. So with that we are done with the side. I will scale it little bit down again on the Z axis and put it down little bit. Go to the front view again and G and Z to put it down according to the base of the sofa. So now we are done. So what we will do is we will select this and we will add a modifier. Select one of the arms and add a modifier, mirror modifier, and we will select the mirrored object to be the base of the sofa. So you can see it's already, since the origin is to the geometry already, it has properly placed the two arms of the sofa, and then we will apply this modifier. So now the base structure of our sofa is ready. So now we will I think I need to scale all of them little bit on the x-axis. I'm sorry, that won't work. So what I'll do is next I'll add the cushions to the sofa. So for that I press Shift A and I add a mesh, say a cube, and then I press G and Z to bring the cube up, and after that I scale it along the Z axis and scale it down just like that. Let's scale it further down along the Z axis. So I'm almost done, and I'll go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, and I'll press G and X to place it on the side somewhat, so that I get an idea about this how can I fit two cushions in this sofa. I'll scale it up little bit. Sorry, I'll scale it up little bit on the x-axis and scale it up little bit on the y-axis, and I will place it G and Y, and I'll place it in the front to keep some space for our cushions at the back, and G and Y, sorry, S and Y, and I will scale it a little bit more on the y-axis and scale it a little bit more on the x-axis. So now I'll do the same thing. I'll simulate cloth with this. So I'll go to the physics tab. First of all we have to select this and press tab to go to the edit mode, and then place some loop cuts here by pressing Ctrl R, and we keep the number of loop cuts to 10. Similarly we place a few more loop cuts perpendicular to it. I've already done this for the previous base of the sofa. So now we hit tab to go back to the object mode, and then we add a bevel modifier, decrease the amount to 0.02 say, and increase the number of subdivisions to 3, the number of segments to 3. And then we go to the we add another modifier, say the subdivision surface modifier. We add the subdivision surface modifier here and put this to 2, viewport to 2. So after we had put the viewport to 2, so now we are ready to simulate cloth. So we go to the physics tab and cloth, and then we do the same thing. We put the pressure and put it to somewhat like 5, and then we go into the field weights and make sure that gravity is turned on to 0, and then we go ahead and we we start simulating cloth. So we pause it here and we see which one would be an ideal position for the cushions. So 5 is a bit too much. I'll keep it at around, say, this much. 4 looks pretty good to me, so I'll keep this at 4. So what I'll do is I'll shade it smooth, and then I'll go to the modifiers and apply the modifiers one by one from the top. So first I'll apply the bevel modifier, then the subdivision surface, and finally the cloth modifier. Now I can turn this back to 0, the timeline, and then I have to adjust the our first set of cushions. So for this I select this, and then I press 1 to go to the front view, and I scale it up on the x-axis little bit. I put it G and X, I put it on the side, and G and Z to bring it down just on the surface of the base of just on the base of the sofa. So we are done with this cushion. Now what we do is go to the top view, press Shift D to duplicate and X to move it along the x-axis, and we put it right here beside it. As you can see, there is some problem with adjusting, so we just reduce the scale on the x-axis for this one little bit, and we do the same thing for this one. We reduce the scale on the x-axis by pressing S and X, and move it little bit on the x-axis, and we are done with this base. So now what we do is we select this, and then Shift we select this cushion as well, and we press Shift D to duplicate and rotate on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and then we click. Then we press G and Z to move it up along the z-axis. We go to the front view, we put it on the base by pressing G and Z. Now we go to the side view and G and Y to put it at the back of the sofa, and S and Z, scale it down on the Z axis, and it will be slightly above the main back of the sofa. So S and Z to scale it down further on the Z axis, and then I go to the front view and I do G and Z to move it down on the Z axis to the base of the sofa. So I go to the side view again and I scale it a little bit on the Z axis, and G and Z to move it up little bit on the Z axis. So now we are done with creating our sofa almost. So like modeling of our sofa. So what we will do next is there is actually some little bit of problem with this. We will just move these two little apart, or let's leave it here just like that. So now what we'll do is we will select this, and press Ctrl A to apply the scale. Then we'll go to the sculpt mode and we will select this cloth thing here, and then we will reduce the radius to somewhat say 30. From the top we'll reduce the radius to somewhat say 30, and we will add subtle details here. As you can see, it's simulating cloth here, so our sofa will look pretty cool with this. So we are adding subtle details here, and we have to do the same thing for all the uh, I'll increase the radius somewhat, and I'll bring in some details to the sofa. So I'm almost done with this one, so I'll repeat it for all of them. I'll go here and I'll press Ctrl A to apply the scale, and I'll go to the sculpt mode once again, and I'll do the same thing for this one as well. As you can see, it is simulating cloth pretty well here. Do it on one surface only. It is looking pretty cool now. So I'll do the same thing for the lower ones. I'll press Ctrl A and I'll apply the scale. Then I'll go to the sculpt mode with the brush already selected, and I'll try to create some wrinkles on my sofa. On the cushions I will try to create some wrinkles here. I'm done with this one as well. Now I'll go back to the object mode, select this, hit Ctrl A to apply the scale, and I'll go to the sculpt mode once again. I'll hit Ctrl S to save my project, which you should always do. So I'll do the same thing for this one as well. So as you can see, it's working pretty well. So now I'm done with creating wrinkles on our cushions. So now we go to the next step, which is adding legs to this sofa. So what we'll do is press Shift A and go to Mesh to add a cube, and we will scale down this cube as much as we can, almost this much. And then we will go to the front view and bring this up by G and Z. You will bring this up, and then we'll go to the side view and G and Y to put it on the back of the sofa, almost at the back of the sofa. And then we will do G and X finally to put it on one of the sides of the sofa, and finally G and Z to bring it up little bit. Now we will work on this. So we will select this, we will go to the edit mode by pressing tab, and we will select this edge. First we have to go to the edge select mode, and we will select this edge and press Ctrl B to bevel. So we'll drag this outwards and it will be beveled, and we will use the scroll wheel of the mouse to increase the number of segments. So this looks fine to me, so I'll click, and here we will change the profile type to custom. So here I'll create a pool shape. So I'll bring this outwards and I'll put this inwards, and yeah, that is looking pretty cool to me. Yeah, so I'll make some changes here. Say I'll bring this down and I'll put this back. So I'll go with this shape. So I'll press tab to come out of the edit mode, and then I select this and add a modifier, which is a mirror modifier. I select the base again to mirror this. As you can see, it's mirrored on the x-axis. So what we do is we check y as well here, so that it's mirrored on all the four axes. So the legs of our sofa is already done, as you can see. So we will apply this modifier from here, and our sofa is almost ready. Now what we need to do is we need to add the cushions to our sofa. With that, our sofa modeling will be over. So to add the cushions, we do the same thing. We hit shift A, and in mesh we select a cube and G and Z to bring the cube upwards. Then we scale it down on the Z axis as much as we can, and then let's keep it at this much of thickness, and then we use G and Z to put it down. Then we do the same thing, we press tab, and before that G and Y to bring it out, and then we hit tab to go to the edit mode. We add some loop cuts by pressing Ctrl and R, and say increase the number of loop cuts to 10, or say for this one we add 20 loop cuts, say 15 loop cuts. That will keep the geometry under control. And we press Ctrl and R again to create another loop cut, and we keep it 15 here as well, so that we have almost square faces right here. So that will make the simulation, the cloth simulation better. So now we press tab and come out of the edit mode to the object mode. So now we do the same thing, add a bevel modifier. So here we have added a bevel modifier. We will decrease the amount here to say 0.04, and we'll increase the number of segments to 3. This is looking pretty good, and next we will add a subdivision surface modifier and increase this to 2 as usual. Now we will go to physics, and we will simulate cloth. So we'll go to pressure here and check pressure and put this to 5, say, and then we'll make sure that gravity is turned off to 0. So now we'll bring up the timeline and we will start simulating. As you can see, this is working pretty well as a cushion. So I'll pause this here, and I'll go back and look for a pretty cool frame. So I want it to be this much fluffy. So here I will shade it smooth, and I'll go to modifiers and apply the bevel modifier first, then the subdivision surface modifier, and finally the cloth modifier. So now we have to adjust this. So we adjust this by clicking we adjust this by clicking G and then Z to bring it up on the Z axis little bit, and then rotate it along the Y axis by 90 degrees first. Then we scale it down to the appropriate size, and finally we rotate it along the y-axis little bit, and we rotate it along the x-axis little bit, and rotate it along the z-axis little bit like this, and we press G and X to put it back there, and G and Y to put it at the corner like that. So this is done. Let's scale it up on the z-axis little bit. I'm sorry, not on the z-axis. Let's scale it up on the x-axis little bit. So and then let's put it a little bit in the front by pressing G and X. And finally we'll select this and add a mirror modifier. You'll press the axis to, we'll keep the axis to X and select the base of the sofa once again. This is mirrored on the x-axis. We'll apply this modifier, and finally our sofa is ready. We can add a few more cushions to our sofa, and next what we'll do is we will go into the shading tab, and our legs are also looking pretty cool. So now we'll go into the shading tab. As you can see, it's now completely white. So next what we'll do is we will add some texture to our sofa base and the cushions and the legs of our sofa. We will add some cool textures to them so that they'll look pretty good, and they should look really well under our lighting system. So we will come back with, I'll come back with textures in the next video. So till then, goodbye. See you in the next video.